What up, YouTube? It's Matty B. Welcome back to the channel, and as always, thank you all for tuning in. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. It's been a really tough few weeks in the moto community as of late. There's the one from Supercross that I think we've all heard about over the last week or so, Jerry Robin with a life-changing injury. A very likable Australian privateer and a YouTube sensation, Joel Evans, unfortunately had an accident where he lost his life over the weekend. And those are just a few recent ones. I have really been bummed on all these people in our moto family being down and out lately, so I've been spending some time on the Road to Recovery page, and there's plenty of names on there. Chad Saultz, another Supercross racer with a spinal cord injury. Adler Cottle, a really good amateur racer that had a spinal cord injury last year. And then a really good friend of mine, Nick Hayes, who actually became a quadriplegic after breaking his neck in an accident at a practice track a few years back. So all these people are still in need of help. I'm going to put all these Road to Recovery links in my description. So if you guys are feeling generous, I'm sure all these guys would really appreciate anything you would have to offer. And of course, I'm sure there's countless other injuries and unfortunately fatalities that we just haven't heard about, that maybe haven't been as high profile or talked about. And it's just the dark side of moto. I feel like we all know every time we get behind the gate, strap up the helmet, our lives could change in an instant. But more than anything, I actually think that says a lot about how awesome moto is in general and how good the good times really are and how they're good enough for us to overlook all the danger and tragedy and keep on coming back even after we take hits ourselves. You guys already know I've been through the ringer. So for today's video, I kind of just wanted to open up a conversation and maybe discuss some ideas on whether or not any of these injuries in Supercross and Motocross are avoidable, and whether it's happening more and more today, or maybe we just hear about it more due to social media and the day and age we live in with the internet and all the news that we're constantly getting. Today's video is dedicated to everybody out there that's had a life-changing injury or has lost a friend, family member, anyone of that nature. This video goes out to you doing what you love and unfortunately paying the price. It definitely sucks. There's no way around it. But one positive is I don't think there's any community like the moto community that bands together and helps people in need whenever they're down and out. So at the very least, we do have an awesome community. But I want to go ahead, before we get too much further into the video, I got to thank my channel sponsors that help keep this going. QuickMoto.com. If you're in need of some graphics, backgrounds, canopies, and much more, use my code on screen for 20% off. Also, Sirius Studio. I'm now a partner in the company, so anything you buy on their website using my code MB820, a small slice of that goes to me to help keep the channel going. And last but not least, my boy AJ is doing a Tesla Model 3 giveaway. I have all the info in my video description on how to enter, and make sure to check him out on X, Instagram, and YouTube at AJ Writes Crypto. My first topic of discussion for today is about the tracks and the bikes. I kind of wanted to talk about both of those things together because they kind of go hand in hand. The tracks have kind of had to evolve as the bikes have changed over the years. And I think overall, just my opinion, it seems like a lot of tracks have gotten faster over the years just because the big 450s, 250Fs, and the weight of the four strokes, they're just not quite as suited to the tight confines as some of these old school tracks, like even some of the MXGP tracks in Europe. Whenever they go to the old school tracks, it just doesn't quite work on the modern bikes, and they've even kind of had to do some overhauls on some of the layouts. Now, let's be real. No matter what track you build, no matter how many safety measures you take, no matter what you do, it's absolutely impossible to make a track where nobody's going to get hurt on. It's just the sport we're in. We all accept the risk. And it's not if, it's when. But even though it's definitely impossible to completely eliminate the risk, I definitely am a heavy believer in minimizing the risk. And part of what I mean about this is we kind of got to make sure that tracks are taking care of the easy stuff. The biggest example I have at the forefront of my mind right now is a couple weekends ago, Tim Geiser at the MXGP of Switzerland. The dude was on the track, fully within the confines of the course, and the dude just hit a full-blown man-made curb that was literally within the track limits. Like, the yellow marker was outside of where this curb was. So Tim was totally on the track. He was kind of flirting with the outskirts of it, but that's how you got to do it when you're sending it. And next thing you know, he just hits this curb and just goes ejecto-cedo. And I do think he's going to race this weekend, but he had a shoulder dislocation, and it just, no matter what happened, it's just a bummer whenever things like that could really be avoided are not avoided. And of course, we've all heard everybody in the media talk about the tough blocks and Supercross and the issues that they have caused. And really, more than anything, the tough blocks and Supercross, that's really for sponsor branding. Every single one of those tough blocks has a logo on it. So I understand, bills got to be paid. It's not cheap to run a Supercross series. I can only imagine all the ins and outs that go into it. But I do think you could continue doing that marketing, continue doing that branding with something a little bit safer. Just a quick idea off the top of my head that I had is maybe have a hole going through the middle of the tough blocks and run some PVC through them just to keep them in place. Or maybe you could even dig out the sides of the track a little bit and then place the hay bales there so they have some place to sit. I think they do something like that at the Paris Supercross. And then on outdoor tracks, MXGP, really any outdoor track that has any sort of signage, it's always wooden stakes that are used, and it's always fine until it's not. Luckily, I don't think I've really heard of anything too tragic happening with that, but I can only imagine flipping right on top of one of those wooden stakes and just getting impaled. So I really hope that it doesn't come to that, to maybe find a little better solution, maybe something that bends and flexes a little bit. And in my opinion, the biggest aspect of track safety on the actual track is kickers on jump faces. It's a guarantee it's going to send somebody to Indonesia. I was just at Glen Helen for the two-stroke world championship. Awesome event, but there were some kickers on the jumps. I did see some people book some flights to Indonesia. And even at that same MXGP of Switzerland that I was just talking about with Tim Geiser, there was one tabletop where I think at least 2 or 3 guys had huge crashes on. So I'm all about rough motocross tracks, like leave the turns all year, make the straightaways rough, let it get gnarly. But when it comes to jumps and flying through the air on a 200+ pound dirt bike, I really think that making sure that the jumps don't have kickers in them should be a #1 priority during race day. And I know if you're not a racer, it's easy to say, oh, we'll just miss the kicker. Well, there's so much going on while you're racing. Like just one example, when I broke my wrist in my B class here at Loretta's, I was coming out of a corner, getting roosted, couldn't even really see the kicker that was about to send me to Indonesia. And next thing I knew, I was seeing Tweety birds, wondering where I was at. And one more thing that I wish I would stop seeing at racetracks is watering during the racing. I mean, that's sketchier than dang kindergarten artwork. You come through a section one lap and you've got all the traction in the world. You can just let it eat, and then you come through the next lap and you've got a little bit of ice in the contract. And it's crazy. They even used to do that at one of the biggest races in the country, the Mini-O's. I don't think they do it anymore, but I have vivid memories of coming around one lap, track being good, coming around the next lap and it being slick. It was hairball. And then when talking Supercross, I'm of the opinion that no matter what you do, it's going to be a give and take, and it's never going to be 100% safe. I can definitely get behind the fact that they're making efforts to do things in the name of safety, like the 9 whoops rule and things like that. I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but I love the intentions behind it. But no matter what you do, it's just going to be insanely dangerous. Like even just the example of rhythm sections, I saw some people talking about in Jerry Robbins' crash that the rhythm section transitions shouldn't have been as steep, but you always hear both sides of the arguments, and both sides could make sense. You know, if the rhythms are too steep, people blame what happened to Jerry on that, but if they're not steep enough, everybody complains about the speed in the rhythms and that they need to be steeper. So no matter what you do, things could get bad, and it could be just from such a minor mistake. That's the crazy part about Supercross, is you can be perfect for months, you make one small mistake, and next thing you know, you're laying in a hospital bed. Outdoor motocross is one thing, but for Supercross, I feel like that's really one where you got to take a step back and kind of think about the risk versus reward, and is this really worth it? I can be perfect for months, make one mistake, my life changes forever, and it's kind of for minimal reward. So Supercross is just straight up for gladiators. I'm saying this because I want to throw some respect to all the people that decide to take on the challenge and race in the stadiums every weekend. You all are badasses. And now back to the bikes. We all know on this channel, I'm a two-stroke guy, big proponent of the two-strokes, but I do have a lot of personal experience with riding both the two-stroke and the 450, and a lot of it back-to-back as well. And I just have so much more fun on the 250 two-stroke. It just seems like it's not going to get out of hand on me near as quickly. It's a lot lighter, a lot easier to control. I will say the 450 makes things a lot easier because they're such good bikes, how they've advanced over the years. They're so fast, but really, in my opinion, they're too fast. I mean, I've raced pro nationals, and I don't really want much to do with a 450 anymore. They're just such a handful. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it. If you're the average rider, you do not need a 450. And don't even get me started on 80 horsepower on the Stark Varg. You should need a full-blown background check for that. And it's crazy, if you watch old Supercross, old motocross, the speeds were definitely slower on the two-strokes back in the day, but the guys looked so much looser, so much sketchier. I feel like they would get out of shape a lot more, but I feel like they would hang on to it a lot more because the bikes were lighter. And when they would crash, speeds were definitely lower than they are on the 450s of today, especially because all the tracks back in the day used to have those super straight up and down transitions, so speeds were probably like half of what they are now back in the day. And I know everybody likes to throw shade at the AMA. It's kind of the thing to do, just like the government. But I got to mention that they are trying to take steps to mitigate these risks, because it's crazy. In years past, you've seen 13, 14-year-old kids on 250Fs, 450s, when back in the day they would have been on at most a 125, but The AMA is at least taking some steps. They put age limits on some of the bikes. You have to be at least 14 years old to ride a 250F. You have to be at least 16 years old to race a 450. And they're also trying to narrow the age groups so the range of ages the kids are racing against with each other isn't so large. Like they used to have the 7 to 1185 class, which has now been changed to the 9 to 1185 class. And they're still working on it. So whether you agree or disagree, you can't deny that there are at least steps being taken to try to make some change and try to make it at least a little safer. Next up, I want to talk about our own personal responsibility to take it upon ourselves to ride safely and within ourselves. It's been really hard for me to live by that and stay safe and healthy while I've been racing because I race for money. I try to pay the bills with it. So it's a totally different dynamic, but for 98% of you, I really don't see the reason to risk it and send it. Let's be real, a cardboard trophy or a plaque is not worth the risk of a life-changing injury or even loss of life. And of course, no matter what you do, all the precautions you take, an accident could happen at any time. I'm not saying any of these things will keep you 100% safe, but they will absolutely help you minimize the risk. And that's really about all we can do in this sport. So just ride within yourself, push the limits within reason if you're comfortable enough to do so. And most of all, just have fun. That's what it's all about. And we all know the competition of racing is one thing, but this especially applies to practice days. I mean, there is literally nothing on the line. I mean, even if you're a pro trying to do your 30+2s and you're on the clock or something, really at the end of the day, it's just your effort and getting in your laps. It doesn't matter if your lap time's a couple seconds off. So just be respectful. Even I get super fired up on practice days when there's guys out there with no track etiquette, like pulling out right in front of you without looking or cross jumping or just doing anything to endanger you and themselves. You know, straight up, I'll get mad, I'll yell, I'll rev my bike. I mean, I'm pissed. And some might think that's a little bit of an but I just know how dangerous moto already is and how your life can change in a second. So I have a really low tolerance for no track etiquette. And it's a bummer. A lot of it is probably just ignorance, but just try to educate yourself on how to navigate safely at an open practice day when there's a lot of others on the track. Look before you enter the track, hold your line, ride the correct practice group if they're doing splits, and give people as much room as you can when at all possible. I'll admit, even I'm guilty of sometimes accidentally cutting it a little bit too close at the practice track, but really there's just no need for it at all, and you definitely won't catch me doing it anymore, that's for sure. And lastly, regarding the personal responsibility aspect of this conversation, I want to bring up the importance of educating yourself on proper technique and equipment. If you're new to the sport or you're struggling and you're about to crash and kill yourself out there on a random practice day, just look for help. Find a trainer, find a coach, outsource it. Don't just do trial and error because the error in this sport can have high consequences. And guys, it doesn't have to be the most expensive trainer or the damn Moto Academy or anything like that for you to get something out of it. I mean, any moto trainer that's half worth the crap should at the very least be able to help you with the basics and maybe some bike setup stuff. And more than anything, just get you around the track safer. Taking it slow and learning to do things the right way before you add the speed will really go a long way in terms of your longevity in the sport. And also, invest in proper protective gear. Don't just go to the local shop and buy some $100 helmet and think you're good to go. You only got one brain. If there's one piece of equipment not to skimp on, it's the helmet. Get a good one. And I also wear a chest protector, not even for wrist protection, but more for chest and back protection. If I have a huge crash and land on my stomach or back, I just want something on there. And hell, I'm even considering going back to the damn neck brace. I'm not going to sit here and act like I've researched this and that I know all the science behind it and all that, but if there's any chance it would help prevent a life-altering injury like a spinal cord injury, then I think I'm at the point where I'm willing to give up some comfort for safety. You know, I totally get why the top pros have all ditched it because they need all the comfort they can get. They're always searching for that last 0.1%, 0.2%, so I understand where they're coming from. And I'm really not even ready to tell you guys that I'm definitively for or against neck braces. But what I am saying is just think about it. At the end of the day, like I've been saying, anything can happen no matter what. I actually, at Minios in 2012, I watched a kid, Jan Skrodzicki, rest in peace, had a huge endo and unfortunately lost his life that day. And he had on, shoey helmet, chest protector, Liat brace. I think he had on all the best of the best. So sometimes if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But like I've been preaching, let's just try to minimize the risk. But more than anything, I think it's something you should maybe just take upon yourself and do a little bit of personal research and try to figure out what might work for you. I actually found some comfort with the Atlas neck brace back in the day whenever I was racing. And I may even reach out and try to partner up with them whenever I get back to riding because I saw a post from them just talking about the science and everything behind it. The way their back piece is, I think it actually helps redistribute forces, all the way through your back. I probably sound like a total uneducated idiot right now, but I've just found success and comfort with the Atlas brace back in the day, and I feel like it's a decent blend of protection as well as comfort. You really don't feel it that much like the old school Liat braces. I feel like those Original braces that came out back in the late 2000s kind of gave everybody a bad taste in their mouth because they were super restrictive, but I really think the technology's come a long way and it's not as bad as you think. And lastly, are these kinds of incidents happening more and more today, or are we just hearing about it more through social media and all the various news outlets? And this is a tough one because I really don't have any data to support this, but I really think more than anything, it's actually the social media aspect rather than it happening more and more today. I think back in the early 2000s, there was a death and a paralysis in Supercross. I saw a guy get paralyzed at Lake Whitney in 2006, about 5 feet from where I was parked when I was 9 years old. When I was 13 years old, the sport got rocked whenever Jesse Masterpool lost his life in a crash at only 14 years old, and he was a hot up and coming prospect amateur. And I would really rather not, but I could go on and on. My main point here is it's nothing new. It's been happening forever. And like I spoke about earlier, I don't necessarily think the introduction of four strokes helped this problem by any means, but I really think the overhaul of social media and news awareness that we've gotten in today's world has a whole lot more to do with it. So in conclusion, Moto's dangerous. It always has been. I really feel like these kinds of things have been happening at a rate similar to this for a long time. I was talking to my group chat for the main event Moto boys, and we kind of concluded it comes in waves. So hopefully this recent wave of bad luck for the moto industry and community is finally over. Some of these bad accidents may be avoidable, but for the most part, I think a lot of them are unavoidable. It just unfortunately comes with the territory of doing a dangerous but very fun sport. And even if everything I talked about in this video was changed and made to be absolutely perfect, people would still get hurt. I guarantee it. It's the life we live and the sport we love, even though we know all the risks. And yeah, just to close this out, a good friend of mine that I spoke about earlier in the video, Nick Hayes, he's in a wheelchair. He's a quadriplegic. And last time I saw him, he told me I needed to race 30 plus at Loretta's. I told him I was worried about getting hurt and didn't want to go through that cycle anymore. And yeah, he told me I needed to race. So if a dude whose life has been changed that severely is still telling me to race, then I think that says something very special about the sport we've all chosen to be a part of. But yeah, that's a wrap for today. Let me know in the comments what you think about my thoughts. If you have any ideas, just anything in general, you can shoot it my way. Even if you want to hate, not a problem. But thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.